When children are challenging, whether it's children that are consistently and persistently challenging or children that just have their occasional issue or outburst, it can be, and I've seen it happen, that adults fall back on old, ineffective approaches to managing these challenges. And I hear teachers justifying that by saying, the child has to learn how to live in the real world. Montessori combats that. She talks about, where is the child if not in the real world? It's not like they're in the sun or the moon. They're here in the real world. It's just the world appropriate for their development. It's okay for them to just fully experience what is appropriate for them at their age. They'll handle the real world, the adult world, when they get there. And the best way to equip them to do that is by fully meeting their developmental needs at their different ages. Teachers will also say, I need to get them ready for middle school. Well, it's the same sort of thing. The best way to get them ready for middle school is to fully embrace what's going to best support them in the elementary years. They need that foundation to be able to function really effectively in middle school and beyond. And sometimes I hear teachers say, children aren't going to learn or they aren't going to respond unless I use punishments and rewards. Punishments and rewards don't work. There's numerous studies that you can Google and find about the ineffectiveness of punishments and rewards. They actually cause people to make less effort rather than more. Rewards do. Punishments are, create unhealthy power issues. They don't work. They're not effective. And at the heart of it is this idea that children won't do something if they're not externally motivated. And of course, we know that to be completely inaccurate. We know children are very strongly internally motivated. And if they're not, something's gotten in their way. So we don't want them to get used to external motivations, whether negative or positive, because then they are not equipped to internally motivate themselves in the future. We don't want them, functioning only on fear of punishment or a desire for rewards. Because then we build up children that are really susceptible to other strong personalities in the future, or as adults are incapable of really making their own decisions and are easily led by someone else, or they're constantly seeking others' approval. So punishments and rewards are not effective. We do not use them in the Montessori environments. So there's no sticker charts. There's no candy for the right answer. There's no punishments for misbehaviors. None of that. We don't use this method. It's ineffective, and it is really contrary to our goals for children in their development. In the same way, we don't use coercion. We don't try to manipulate our relationship. We don't push children because we have more power. We want children to really take responsibility for their own actions. And if we're going to manipulate them to make a choice, then they can't do that. So we have to be careful, because it's easy to fall into a coercion, even when we think we're offering them choices. Do you want to eat this lukewarm canned spinach? Or do you want to eat the pickled cabbage with, or sauerkraut or something else that they find disgusting? We don't want to offer them two terrible choices and make them choose one. That's two things we know they don't want to do. That's a coercion. So even though it feels like we're offering them freedom, we're actually trying to, force them to make the choice that we want. And in doing that, we're telling the child, I have more power than you, and what I want is more important than what you want. And that's disrespectful and not the way we approach children, and not the way that we help them to be able to make their own decisions. So coercion is not an appropriate way to work with children. And it lays the groundwork for children thinking that if I have more power than someone else, I can make them do whatever I want. Because that's what we show them when we exercise our power in that way. So not an effective strategy, and can be really dangerous in the long term for children. In the same way, praise can be sort of a coercion, and it can be really detrimental to a child's development, because children end up doing things so that they get our praise, or they start to feel like our praise is empty and they lose respect for us, and that's damaging to our relationship with them. So praise is not an effective method either. So praise is a thinly disguised reward. And there's a number of other approaches that adults often take with children that are basically punishments and rewards under another name. One of those is logical consequences. This is the idea that, well, if you broke something, then you need to fix it and maybe 10 other things in the classroom. Or you made a mess here, so you have to clean everything. And it seems logical, hence the name, right? Well, you did that, so you have to take care of it. But it actually morphs into a punishment if the child is not engaged and doesn't agree with that response. Then you're forcing a child to do something they don't want to do. In anything, even with saying sorry, for a behavior, if you force a child to do that when they're not feeling sorry, you're asking that child to lie. You're telling them it doesn't matter what you actually feel, you just need to lie and say that you're sorry. And those are the kinds of things we don't want to do. That sends the wrong message to children. So we want to be sure that logical consequences are in fact logical or more natural. It's more natural to say, well, you broke that, so now you can't use that word because it's broken. And maybe the child will want to work to fix it, and that'd be great. And that could be something they decide to do, but we want them to own that decision. We don't want that to just be an imposition by the adult. That's where it becomes more of a punishment, more of I'm in charge and I'm telling you what to do. Instead, we want children to think about how they can solve their problems. Some parents and other adults use timeouts with children. And the rationale for this is not unreasonable. It's an idea that when a child's upset or struggling in a situation, sometimes they need some quiet space to calm down. And so that is definitely a strategy to help children develop. When you feel all hot and angry inside, it might be good to move away to a quiet space and take some deep breaths. That's a great self-regulation tool to help the children learn. But when we tell a child who's melting down in some way that they must leave and go somewhere alone and have a time out, that's a punishment. And that's, to a certain extent, an abandonment of a child who's showing you they need support. And so then it becomes a power issue again. I'm more powerful than you. I do not like your behavior right now. And so I'm banishing you from the community that loves you until you can, behave in a way I consider more acceptable. That's a dangerous message to send to children as well. When children are melting down, certainly they might need some quiet space to calm themselves, but also sometimes what they need is a trusted adult who loves them to nurture and support them. And so sending them away is sort of the opposite of what they need. And my tendency with children, and that is appropriate for our approach, is when they are struggling, bring them closer. Hey, come hang out with me for a little while. hey, it seems like maybe we should connect. I'm going to do something really cool over here. Why don't you come with me? Right? Think about how different that is from you need to go take a time out and calm yourself down. Maybe I need to show you how to calm yourself down. Maybe I need to distract you. Maybe we just need to connect, and that connection is going to help you calm down. That's a much more respectful and actually helpful approach to children. So we don't use timeouts in Montessori either. And we don't use a long list of rules and detailed behavior contracts with children either. Again, that's another place where it can be, I'm the powerful adult and I'm saying this and you need to agree to it. Instead of building sort of verbal contracts or agreements in relationship, everything that we need to do with a child has to be focused within the relationship we have with that child. So all of these other sort of approaches that have been around for a long time and adults have used for a long time with children, they don't work. They're not best for a child's development, for our relationship with children, for the development of their own self-regulation and autonomy, and they go against our whole approach otherwise. So we can't use them. We will inevitably fall back on them on occasion and make that mistake. That happens to the best of us. But our goal is to think of these other approaches, the Montessori approach that's more effective, more respectful, and ultimately long-term serves the children in their development.